Okay, the last film we're going to be talking about is 30 Days of Night from
Wow.
2007. Now, 30 Days of Night is, like Dawn of the Dead, one of our entries of action horror.
Mm,
So we have a movie set in Alaska, I believe. It's Alaska, up
yes.
north, where it gets dark,
Mm,
dark for long periods of time early in the day. It's not like California here. It gets dark at what time? Like 12 p.m.,
yeah.
you know? And
Yep.
there's this period of time where it's 28 days or not 28 days, 30 days of darkness.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is up there. And what happens in these 30 days is that an army of vampires invades this town. And who's the actor in it? Who's the main actor in this?
It's at the tip of my tongue. I
He
forgot.
was in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, he was also in Black Hawk Down with Ridley Scott.
Josh Hartnett.
Josh Hartnett. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much. An icon.
Josh Hartnett, he plays the sheriff or the deputy sheriff. He plays the policeman, the law of this town,
Oh,
and he leads his people to survival,
laying it down.
laying it down, taking on all these different vampires that are more cannibalistic than vampires we're used to. It's a crazy film, dude, and I really enjoy it. It took me a minute to realize that it was going over the course of weeks, because it cuts from one moment to another moment, and you can't tell that they're days apart because it's all
Yeah.
night, and it's
Yeah.
a really crazy, awesome part of the film. Go
Was
ahead.
this your first time watching it?
Yeah, it was my
Oh
first time
man.
watching it.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm
And
so happy to hear that. This is my favorite vampire movie ever made. This is my favorite vampire movie ever made. 100%.
it's tough,
Um,
man.
Josh
What
Hartnett is
Yeah.
such a fantastic protagonist. I love this idea that they are taking place in Alaska, which was a new setting for me when I first saw it. So I'm like, oh, great, a horror movie in Alaska, awesome.
What is that going to be like?
What is
Yeah.
that going to be like?
Yeah.
It's going to be for 30 days of night with vampires. Holy crap! That's the actual worst scenario that I could ever ask for.
The
And
Russians are over there just watching Dormas's.
yeah, and we see it, man. This is exactly what vampires are. They are terrifying monsters, demonic forces,
Yeah, just
um,
evil. Just evil.
evil,
Yeah.
crazy evil, like Nick Cage would say in Mandy. Crazy evil. And yeah, this is one of those movies where it's like, I am glad I'm not in this situation. I am very happy that I'm not in
Yeah.
this situation because I would die. And the way that these vampires kill these people is very cannibalistic. They are ruthless, and they don't care if you're 5 years old. They don't care if you're 85 years old.
Your meat.
They will eat you up.
Yeah.
You are on the menu,
Yeah.
100%. Um,
Like in Lord of the Rings
yeah.
with
So
that poor orc.
yeah,
Meat's back on the menu, boys.
exactly. And the vampires actually kind of look like that. Their teeth,
Yeah.
they're like great white sharks. You
Yeah.
know, so not only are the designs great, not only is the aspect of horror in this film just fully fledged out, but guess what I also love about this movie? The characters.
Mm.
The characters are everything, and the way that they deal with how to survive. You even see the guy who plays um what is it? Deathstroke in Arrow.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was in this film, and what he does to
Manu
his
Bennett.
family. Yeah, Manu Bennett,
Yeah.
who's a fantastic actor and needs to be in more things. I put him in The Boys season 3. I think he would just fit perfectly in that role.
Oh,
Um,
that's
you know,
Deathstroke.
yeah, to see what he does and how he copes with survival is really crazy. So this movie is really an examination of how we survive when when we're up against a wall, right? How do we survive? A lot of people react to it differently, but the main theme is, don't ever try to don't ever try to do something on your own in times of desperation. If you have help, get it wherever you can, especially with people who are level-headed like the main character, which by the way is one of my favorite main protagonists in a horror movie ever,
Mhm.
especially when you think about what happens at the end when he's like, let me give them some of their own medicine and let me save the damn day like a goddamn superhero. Come on, man. Come on. That is awesome.
Time to pull some Rick Grimes on these vampires.
That is awesome. It's seriously one of my favorite things that happens in a horror movie ever. We are filled with fear. There's nothing we can do. You know what? Let me handle this. Yo, so freaking dope, man. So freaking dope. I love it. And yeah, man. It's a tough watch, but at the very end it's like hell yeah. Hell to the yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's a tough watch just because, for one thing, the lengths they'll go to in terms of the gore.
Mm,
Like every 5 minutes, something terrible is happening to someone. Some
mhm.
poor soul who got like bitten and infected.
Yep. Yep.
Like, oh man, I knew you back when you were living, but now you're just in the way, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you got to be taken down by whatever means necessary.
Oh, 100%. Look, if you are bloodthirsty for just a fantastic horror film and also for like a vampire movie, I
Yeah.
can't think of many recent vampire movies within this 2 decades that really stand out. This one does for
Yeah.
sure. This is a true vampire film. And I also love the mythology of these vampires too. We don't really know where they came from. They have their own language and stuff like that. It's ancient. They've been around for ages, but that's what makes them scarier too. They're like these foreign entities that come in and invade this wonderful town where everybody knows each other. Wonderful. And the setup is brilliant too. With Ben Foster. This was actually my introduction to Ben Foster
Yeah.
as an actor. They're coming. Chilling, bro. Chilling. They're coming. And he wants to join them too. Like you have these characters working against these humans. He wants to work for them. Nah, they're ruthless. They don't give a damn who you are.
This
You're
is
meat, boy.
this is the movie that actually convinced me why are we messing around? Get Ben Foster to play Wolverine, dude.
Oh my God.
He
Yes,
would be
man.
insane. I mean, he's the right size. He's shorter than, Josh Hartnett in this film.
Yep.
He could
Yep.
pull it off, man. He could pull off that ferocity. I forgot that he was in it, and he's incredible in it.
He's fantastic. Let me give you something crazier. He's actually one of my several choices for Robert Pattinson's Joker.
Yeah, you've been saying that for years. How you want to see
Yeah.
Ben faster for the Joker role, whether it
Please.
be in the main world, whether it be in the
Yep.
Batman. I think that would be really interesting. Him as the Batman's
Yeah.
Joker.
Yeah,
He'd be
100%.
insane.
He is, man. He is. I mean, Lone Survivor, 30 Days of Night, Hell or High
Hell or
Water.
High Water, yeah.
Leave No Trace, which is a very underrated film. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. It's a great
X-Men
movie.
3.
Yeah, it's a great Angel. No, but Ben Foster and Leave No Trace. For those of you who haven't seen Leave No Trace, check that film out. Ben Foster shows everybody how to act in that movie. Great film about PTSD and loneliness. Very, very wonderful.
You remember when in X-Men, and I'll check that out, but do you remember in X-Men 3 when he busted out he busted out from that strap chair,
Yeah.
and the next shot that they cut to him looking at his dad, he looked like a bird.
Yeah, bro.
He's like
Dude.
doing that head.
So funny. So funny.
He just
Um, But speaking of Ben Foster, there's also one more movie I want to recommend. I forgot the title, but it was when he was much younger. It is so freaking good. It stars the guy who plays Harrison Wells in The Flash as his mentor.
Oh yeah, Tom Cavanaugh.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tom Cavanaugh. Thank you so much. Basically, what the movie is about is this kid has a plot to, I think, set bombs throughout his school and stuff like that, and he gets caught. And what the teacher does is he makes him the star of the musical in their school, and it is just fascinating.
Wow,
Fascinating.
what's that movie called?
I think honestly, I think it's called Bang Bang, You're Dead. I think.
Okay, I want to
Um,
check that out now.
It is great. It is great.
What's funny is that Ben Foster could easily play the Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
Easily.
Easily. 100 in his sleep.
Yeah, in his
In
sleep.
his sleep.
He'd walk backwards.
Yeah.
He'd run backwards.
Yeah. But I love 30 Days of Night, man.
Yeah.
I love 30 Days of Night. It's fantastic.
Well, what's funny how you brought up the 30 Days of Night being the vampire film of the last 20 years. Do
Yeah.
you feel that because it is so different from all other vampires. What we look at as vampires, you know, sexy, mysterious, castles, and all that. This
Mhm.
is a movie that doesn't have any of that. They're monsters, and it's an action film. So is that why you think this is the redefining one, if you will?
It's like it's the resurgence, I
Hmm.
think, of vampire movies. When we think about the 70s, 80s, 90s, we we were privileged with just vampires that were terrifying,
Right.
nightmarish, right? Um, Late 90s, we had Queen of the Damned, we had Blade, you know. Um, and then we come into the 2000s and we had Twilight. We had that era where vampires were looked at as like, oh, they're erotic,
Right.
they're sexually appealing and stuff like that. Um, but 30 Days of Night, when it came out, it was like, nah, nah, nah. Here's the truth. Here's a true, genuine, terrifying vampire, and don't you ever look at them sexy again. You know what I mean?
Vampires suck.
Yeah, this is sexy. This is a sexy horror film right here. Uh,
That's
so
Man, I
eh,
wish you were reviewing the movie back when it came out. They put your little quote on the poster, and then they go in and then they see just like brain bashing.
this is a sexy vampire film. Yeah. But also I think it's this movie that actually heavily inspired I think it might have inspired Matt Reeves to do the remake for Let the Right One In, which is a Swedish
Mhm.
vampire film. And he did this film, the remake called Let Me In, starring Chloe Grace Moretz and Asa Butterfield, I think. Um, and that one is also an amazing vampire film. That's a really great film.
I'm gonna check. I got a lot of movies to watch,
Oh,
but
oh,
that sounds
oh,
dope.
put that at the top of your list. Matt Reeves, Let the Right One
Let
In, or Let Me
Let
In.
me in. Yeah.
Put that at the top of your list. You're gonna see why he's directing the Batman.
I can't wait. Now, you brought up Blade, which I think Blade had a lot to do with 30 Days of Night coming in the way that it
Mhm,
did, because
mhm.
Blade was the R-rated vampire action film. But
Yeah.
now we have, 30 Days of Night. Now we're getting Blade from the MCU. Now, do you think that they should go in a 30 Days of Night direction,
Please.
or
Yeah.
or what else? What other options do you think there are for Blade?
I would like to see them go in the 30 Days of Night direction.
Mhm.
I really would, just because I feel like I nothing could beat the feeling of someone um having the strength physically and internally to be like, I'm gonna take out these vampires. For me, that nothing beats that, and that's perfect for a superhero vehicle. You know what
Right.
I mean? When we see that ordinary sheriff at the very end go like, you know what? There are no other options. Give me that syringe. And
Yeah.
he gives himself vampire blood, bro. I'm like, it's lit. It's lit, and he's just a normal person. Now let's think about the Daywalker, starring Mahershala Ali. If they really give us a vampire movie that is brutal, and if Kevin Feige wants to take that step where he's like, you know what, we know our audience, we know we will always have a faithful young audience, but for Blade in a world of vampires, let's give them something a bit more. Let's give them something to really chew on and something that's just horrifying.
Mhm.
Mm, give that to me, because I think really the superhero aspect of that will overpower the actual horror aspect of it, and it'll just be more kick-ass to see Blade take on these vampires.
So, I mean, we've talked about Blade in the past, and the direction that it'll go and how it'll affect the Marvel universe as a
Yeah,
whole.
yeah. Mhm.
And with the 30 Days of Night approach of a Blade film, I feel like that would mean you would go in an R-rated direction
Mhm.
with it. So, if they're willing to do that, that'd be crazy. If they're willing to put Blade as their first R-rated film ahead of something like Deadpool, I think that would be really interesting. And arguably, they have done R-rated content on Netflix,
Yes.
even though that's a different department, but from the movies. But I think that would be an appropriate step since our what's it called? Blade was, as far as I know, the first R-rated Marvel film. You know, so why wouldn't it be here with the MCU?
That would be awesome. And I actually think that is the right way to go. I think the MCU's first R-rated movie should be Blade. I mean, if we're staying true to the nature of vampires, where they come from, all the way tracing back to Dracula, it's like, no, these aren't kid-friendly things, like they feed on people. They feed on they
They're
chew
killers.
they chew at the neck for their prey. So
Yeah,
it's like I got to see that.
yeah, and also if it is like, say they set it on a different world, right, in this
Mhm.
Marvel multiverse, that's an R-rated world, you know,
Mhm.
so
Yep.
it's separate from the rest of the world. That's PG-13 usually.
Yeah.
But they don't even have to do that. If they wanted to, that's a way of explaining, oh, well, this is the R-rated world, you know? This
Yeah.
is the world with Deadpool and,
Yeah.
all those guys.
Exactly. And I've heard of Disney Plus using methods to really distinguish their audiences, and it's to add a passcode on Disney Plus for the adult content. And that to me is like, yep, that solves all your problems with the children on Disney Plus. If there's an adult passcode for the adult content like Deadpool and stuff that they want to do R-rated, like Moon Knight or even Daredevil too, if they want to continue the show, that's how you solve it.
So, like, it would be like parental controls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, man. That's another thing. Like they're doing Moon Knight. That's gonna be on Disney Plus. How you can do that?
Yeah.
If it's not
We'll
like
see.
a Daredevil tone, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but coming back to the vampire centric stuff, do you think that I know my answer and I know your answer, but I'm gonna ask anyway. The director of Blade. We've talked about Jordan Peele. We've talked about Guillermo del Toro. Why not the director of 30 Days of Night?
It has to be. It has
Why
to be.
not?
Why not? I'm telling you, because this really take out, if you would have if you put in Mahershala Ali in this movie, it's Blade.
You put Wesley
It's
Snipes in
Blade.
there. It's double
Yeah.
Blade.
It is Blade. It's Blade. And I think that's why I love it so much. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. It's like it's so cool. Like sometimes when you watch films and you work backwards, you really see the influence in movies and it makes you appreciate it a lot more.
Mhm.
Paul Thomas Anderson, director of Punch Drunk Love, director of There Will Be Blood, Boogie Nights, such a fine filmmaker. He says that if he ever taught a film school, he would work backwards. And I actually like that method of like looking at film history, because when we take film classes and stuff, we start from the very beginning and work to the very end. But Paul Thomas Anderson says, no, you should do it backwards because your appreciation for the movie that you watched previously will grow exponentially. And I completely agree with that. And I think 30 Days of Night would not exist, you're right, with Blade, because they really do have the same DNA. And I think that's why I love it a lot too.
Another reason why working backwards could actually benefit a class is because you're starting from where they know film to
Mm,
be. You know, they know
yep.
what it is at that point. So
Yes.
how
Yeah.
did we get here?
Hmm.
Well, let's look at 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right now Tron 3 was announced, right?
Hmm.
Where were we 10 years ago? Well, Tron Legacy came out. How did
Hmm.
that happen? We had Tron in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So you want to working backwards could be a very good method, and I think that that should be taken into account when it comes to Blade, in the
Hmm.
MCU. Just looking at all types of vampire movies, right? Because there are all
Yeah.
types. There's 30 Days of Night. There's Blade. There's What We Do in the Shadows. There's Dracula.
Hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that you could take from, and I think a good movie would take all of it under consideration, right?
Yeah. Do you think the only exception would be the horror genre? Because I feel like if you work from beginning to end, the payoff is much greater than experiencing it backwards. For example, if we
Right.
watched Cap, if I taught a horror class and I was like, okay, we're working backwards, we're gonna start off with Cabin in the Woods. I feel
Yeah.
like that movie you wouldn't fully experience what that movie offers unless you start from the very beginning. I think same thing goes for the slasher genre. Uh, if I taught a horror class, I would definitely start from the beginning. I would go from, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to John Carpenter's Halloween
Mhm.
to Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street to Friday the 13th to Scream,
Mm.
to top it off, because Scream is that love letter to the slasher genre and the horror genre in itself. Do you think the horror genre is an exception to the rule, or could it working backwards as well?
Well, I think there are going to be exceptions to the rule no matter what. It's kind of the trapping of working on a general basis because so
Mm-hmm.
many things are case by case.
Yeah.
And I think if you did go backwards and it didn't work in the horror genre, if you were teaching a class and you were going backwards with the horror genre, you'd learn a lot of things that didn't work. Like
Mm.
say you did start with Cabin in the Woods, and it didn't mean a lot to the class. All it would be is you explaining why this means something,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's where you learn, okay, maybe I don't start with the movie that is a love letter to the horror, right? I
Yes.
think you could start with something like It Follows, right? As a modern piece of
Mm.
horror that kind of homages in the way that it's made to like the 80s period,
Yeah.
right? So I think it just depends on what you're trying to convey to your classmates
Mhm.
or not mates, but students,
Yeah.
you know?
I think the primary like goal would be like, all right, let's see where this got this one from.
Right.
Or like let's see where this uh was influenced by, and It Follows is like an amazing example because you put on It Follows and it's like, okay, let's put on The Thing now. Let's put on Halloween. You know, let's put on A Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's like, man, this is like that love child of all
Mhm.
those movies, which is why I appreciate it so much.
Well, I think it would be interesting if it like, and I am getting into the syllabus of a class that doesn't exist, but I think it would be really interesting if you ask the students certain movies that they liked
Yeah.
from different genres, and then they picked, like one section has a horror movie, one section has science fiction, one section has that, and then they're probably going to be modern, right? Because
Mhm.
they're students, and you watch them, you examine them, and you, as a professor, you should know where these things originated from, what got these films made. You know,
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting, way of conducting a class.
Yeah. I was actually talking about this with my brother too after we watched Doctor Sleep. I asked him, I said,
Can I teach
you
a
know,
course?
no, I was like, do you think Doctor Sleep, like, do you think it would have hit us the same way if we had never seen The Shining first?
Right.
And I think the answer to that is no. I think the way you maximize your experience is you have to watch The Shining first. So, and it's great that some movies work like that. I love that there's like for certain films you have to have a prerequisite.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just not fully grasping everything about it. And the thing is with Doctor Sleep too, I think if I show my kids The Shining, um, I'm gonna make them wait a couple years for Doctor Sleep because when that music, the way that they do their rendition on it,
Yeah.
when it comes in, it's like time has to pass for that moment to really hit the way that it did.
Yeah. And even with the character, with
Mhm.
Danny Torrance's character arc, they won't understand it the first time they watch The Shining, because
Yeah.
The Shining is meant for it's the child's perspective on what's going on,
Yes.
whereas
Yeah.
the Doctor Sleep is the adult's perspective. So
Hmm.
that's probably wise. And also, oh man, I had something to say but I forgot. But that's okay. This is about horror movies, and we talked a lot about horror movies, and I think that's all we had to
Yeah.
cover. Angel, what are your last thoughts on horror as a genre, and close us out?
Horror is my church, and I worship this genre every single day. Any chance that I get to watch a horror movie, um, I just take that opportunity. And even when it comes to movies I haven't seen yet, I always look forward to watching something in the horror genre because it always surprises me. I think this genre to me is the one that's most surprising. I never really know what I'm going to get into. For example, I mean, it was our first topic for today. Doctor Sleep, our first segment for this session. I watched it, and I'm telling you, it's like, wow, I can't believe everything that was just offered to me on screen. It's really wild. So I will always love this genre, and I will never say no to a horror movie, especially even if it looks bad. I'll always check it out because you never know. You can always get a true gem.
This is the Church of Horror. We offer the bread, the body of Jason, and the blood of Freddy.
That's right. That's right.
And you pray to the statue of Romero, of course.
Exactly. And the Church of the Collective is next door.
Yeah, and the Church's Chicken is down the street. I'm very happy that we did this, and
Yeah, me
that
too,
this
man.
is happening. I love horror movies, and I love what they represent. And I can't wait for next year when we can actually do this in person, watch these movies together.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
we have to. We got to
Uh,
rewatch Doctor Sleep, my guy.
yeah, that's gonna be something else. That's gonna be like an end game
Yeah,
type watching, type of viewing.
yeah. Oh, and I watched the director's cut too, by the way.
Oh,
I
cool.
didn't watch the theatrical cut because I trust Mike Flanagan so much, and every second,
Of
I
course.
ate up.
Yeah, have to eat it up. It's the body of Jason. What else? Are you gonna do? All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. I am Julius.
And I'm Angel.
If you love horror movies, then keep listening.
Yes, please.
Goodbye. Happy Halloween. Peace out. The GOAT Podcast is proof you don't have to look any further for movie news, reviews, trailer reactions, or special discussions. Subscribe, get notified about what's going on, and I promise you'll be entertained by our daily content on YouTube. If you want more, we're on Twitter at GOAT Film Podcast, Instagram The GOAT Podcast, and the GOAT Movie Group on Facebook. Get connected with us, see what's happening, and make sure to love it while you're doing so.